What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off what the charts are showing and based off what the data is suggesting. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market, how this may affect NIO, what's going on with the macroeconomic factors in China, and why on earth these things are actually setting up for a pretty decent move for NIO and still allowing this thing to continue pushing to the upside. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any could be a free NIO share, a free Tesla share, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just one day. Check it out before they run out tomorrow. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO is up almost 12% for the day on Friday, looking pretty strong, and I do believe this trend is set to continue. If you look at the data real quick, you will notice that the short interest has been on this downtrend. That tends to be a good sign because many shorts have been covering their positions. And on top of that, we are seeing more and more buyers really stepping into the stock, helping it push to the upside. Also, guys, what else is very good would be, I believe, on like Thursday or Friday, we saw a lot of these big banks like B of A Securities, not to mention Mizuho. There are all these analysts saying buy NIO. They're giving NIO all these buy signals, especially after Deutsche Bank that actually said it about a week ago, calling the move to the upside pretty well. So I am impressed by that. And they were right to actually say this about NIO's fundamentals. We also have very high expectations for Q4 set by William Lee Bin, which is a good sign because NIO does look very promising. Mondays are green about 49% of the time historically. That's about 50-50, but I believe this time NIO is going to have another green day because of how the market is going to move and also because of the strength it's showing right now. Historically, Novembers are actually green about 55% of the time for NIO, so that's another good sign out there that NIO should have a pretty decent month. And I also believe that going forward, we are showing more strength than before. Notice that the QQQ has been pumping with NIO, but look at the price pairs ratio. Right here when this thing was coming down, NIO was underperforming compared to QQQ, the NASDAQ. Then what happened was NIO got a big bounce and this thing is starting to outperform it, which is a good sign, a nice sign of strength, and NIO looks like it wants to keep going. As far as the market goes, I have another update about excuse me, about the SPY options chain. What happened is the put to call ratios have been going down. This means that more of these institutions have been closing these puts than before. It's even more than what I showed you guys yesterday. This is a sign that they're going to be hedging by buying more of the shares. They're going to be buying SPY and into the QQQ, into like NIO and things like that, which is a bullish signal. On top of that, if we look at the inflationary data, there is something I wanted to note, and that's the fact that I'm not truly 100% convinced that inflation is just going to be down every single month from this point on, because we need more data to actually confirm that. And that's why you have to be very cautious during times like this. Notice how there are instances where, as we approach 2000, inflation went up, then down, then up, then down, back and forth, back and forth. And that's why I'm still very cautious, like I mentioned. However, the market is continuing to pump off this news. It believes that CPI is going to continue to come down and the Fed may pivot sooner than expected. In my opinion, if inflation does continue to just start tumbling down very hard, the Fed may pivot sooner than expected. However, I don't see it happening like super soon, guys. I believe they are going to slow down the rate in which they increase rates going into maybe like December, maybe for January and February or so. But then once they're done with the rate hikes, they're going to keep the interest rates relatively high for many months before they start to pivot later on for inflation to come down. So we are pretty far from the pivot, but there are some good signs out there that the economy is improving in a sense because inflation is coming down. Now, unemployment may be affected by this and may start to go up. However, considering the labor force participation rate actually ended up going down because of the virus, because of 2020, it's not actually being affected as hard as it could have been. Now, when it comes to this week, we have PPI coming out for Tuesday. Not going to be as impactful as before because much of this is priced in with the better than expected CPI report. And on top of that, we have lots of Fed speakers, guys. For Wednesday, there's some of them, but for Thursday and Friday, I think they are going to become more hawkish. I think they're going to try to slow down this rally. So be very prepared for Thursday and Friday, guys. The market could kind of like trade kind of sideways, chop around a bit. Be ready for that. But before we get to Thursday and Friday, we have to talk about Monday and Tuesday, and I am still more bullish for those days. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to China is the lockdowns have slowed down a bit in some areas, but in other areas, in many economic powerhouse areas, we have seen the lockdowns getting more strict. So it's kind of going back and forth. But one thing that is good is the fact that, well, I don't know why that's there. Close that up. Sorry about that. But, anyways, when it comes to the whole like situation that we are seeing in the markets, I really believe that relatively soon there's going to be a meeting between Joe Biden and the president of China. That could actually improve things for a lot of these companies. NIO is going to like that too. So the situation is improving just a bit temporarily when it comes to tensions. I do believe that that's a good sign, and it does leave more room for NIO to continue pumping. When it comes to the market, I mentioned previously, guys, that SPY looks more bullish than bearish. It's going to keep pumping, and we are approaching key resistance right about here around this like 410 zone, maybe a little bit lower depending on how long it takes. We also have a gap fill around that 407 coming up pretty soon. So SPY looks more bullish once we break past 400. And then on top of that, we have the VIX looking pretty bearish. It looks like it's going to continue to come down. I'm going to be watching that 21.68 followed by that 20 level on VIX, which is a sign the market has more room to continue pumping. On top of that, the US dollar, for instance, is continuing to come down. We broke below the 200 EMA on the daily. Let me just show that to you for 1 second. Right here, we actually broke below a key support zone, so we are going to continue coming down. It looks more like we're going to retest the 105s very, very soon. So be ready, guys. 105 to 104 should be tested. We'll see if we bounce from there, but it does look like it's going to keep going down, which is a sign that the markets are still showing more confidence. This means that the market's going to continue pumping. The last thing I want to talk about is QQQ. If I could find it, it's right here. So QQQ looks like it's going to hit that 290 level relatively soon. And once we hit that 290 zone, I believe we have more potential to hit that 295 to 294 zone. We could actually retest that relatively soon. And if we do see a nice move on the QQQ, many of the tech stocks are going to continue pumping. One thing that's kind of a little bit different for NIO would be Tesla. Unfortunately for Tesla, even though this thing is pumping up, it's not as strong as before because of the whole Elon Musk selling situation. So we're still waiting on that. But Tesla is continuing to pump up a bit. So I do believe this is going to be good for NIO too if we do continue, which I think we most likely will. For NIO, the daily candle looks pretty strong. NIO looks like it's going to retest this key zone around that 12.38 level. I do believe NIO is going to retest it and maybe break past it. And if we get a clean break, the zone to be watching for is going to be all the way up here. So I mentioned previously, let me use a smaller time frame for this. There's a key zone that's around that 12 to 13 level, 13.2 to 12. So right here, you can see that NIO has a supply zone around that 13.2 level. And also we have a lot of kind of like demand for shares around here. So we did bounce back and forth around this zone. And I do believe NIO is destined to come back to this range around that 12 to 13.2 range. This means that NIO is likely going to continue pumping, in my opinion. I really believe that NIO is going to break past the resistance around 11.69. Then we're going to retest 12.38 to 12.4. I believe NIO is going to break that, guys. I really think it will, and we'll get a retest of 13.2 relatively soon. For tomorrow, I mean, predicting the exact timing is a little bit tricky, but considering how much this thing is pumping, we could have another like 7 to 10% day tomorrow. I mean, it's very possible. I just don't want to promise it, and I want you guys to be prepared for anything. If NIO comes down, watch that 11.2 followed by that 11 flat, followed by about 10.4 is going to be another major level. We have a gap down here. So watch these zones very carefully if NIO does end up coming down. And if it comes down, it's likely going to be correlated with Tesla. If NIO pumps tomorrow, which I think is most likely going to be the case, NIO first has to break 11.69. If we break it, it's probably going to fly to about 12.4. And I can't guarantee that NIO is going to hold this level perfectly. We might come down a bit because resistance is very strong there. I'm hoping for another retest of it again and again. and we might actually finally get a clean break above it. Now, we might actually come down during lunchtime before that. So we could come down to this like 12 level, maybe a little lower. But then I'm hoping for a nice push near the end of the day. I hope that NIO breaks past 12.5 and we continue to pump from there. We see this thing very close to 12.6, 12.7 to close tomorrow for another decent green day. So that's what I'm seeing. If NIO is even more bullish, if this thing is like super, super strong, guys, and the buying pressure is so crazy, this thing could even break past 13, believe it or not. So with that said, thank you all so much for listening. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. Watch both support and resistance levels. Watch your demand and supply zones. And please note that anything can happen in the markets. If NIO were to come down, watch the gap. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen. I think NIO is more likely to continue pumping. I want to see this thing approach that 12.4 level, break past it, and maybe hit 12.75 or so. With that said, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.